In the previous episode, Wuxia Academy held its opening ceremony, where students were assigned classes. Tang Wulin and his friends were placed in the lowest-ranked Class 5, led by the handsome yet icy teacher Wu Zhangkong. He immediately challenged their perception, stating he'd make them the strongest. During introductions, Tang Wulin revealed his blue-silver grass and rank 11 soul power, while Zai Zai shocked everyone with his exceptional rank 18. Eastsea Park wasn't far from Eastsea Academy. One could reach the park after a 10-minute stroll by following the path next to the exit of the academy. The park was accessible to the public at no charges at all. As it was still early in the day, the park was filled with many citizens doing their morning exercises. As one strolled into the park, their senses would be greeted with a rush of nature's perfume, a blend of the crisp scent of the plants and the floral sweetness from flowers, which refreshed their minds. Tang Wulin felt himself gradually relaxing. His blue-silver grass was a plant martial soul, and he was currently surrounded by fields of blue-silver grass. This was the environment he loved best. He had a faint thought that if he meditated here, the results would be much better than if he were to meditate back in the dorms. He had already proven this point when he was back home in Glorybound City. But it was impossible to compare the small garden back home to this park with its endless boundaries. The differences in size was simply incomparable. Zai Zai wasn't surprised that he wasn't the first to arrive. He strolled casually and with much familiarity into the deepest parts of the park. Following the graveled walkway into the park, one would realize the differences in the size of the trees. The deeper into the park, the larger they became. Eastsea Park had a history of over 1,000 years, long before even the Eastsea Academy had been founded. With its rich history, the park contained many varieties of rare trees. As he moved deeper into the park, Tang Wulin gradually felt even better. This feeling of returning back to nature revitalized the martial soul within him. Such a good place, I will be back again, Tang Wulin thought. As they reached the deepest part of the park, where they were well hidden from others, Zai Zai halted in the center of an open area. Here it is. He turned to face Tang Wulin. Tang Wulin stopped at the same time, returning a cautious look to Zai Zai. I will be fair to you. Since I am an agility system battle soul master, I will move back 50 meters. When I say start, you may move. As he spoke, Zai Zai began moving backwards. He refused to take advantage of Tang Wulin, especially not with his pride held up so high. Tang Wulin didn't make a sound. Instead, his mind was filled with the images of their previous match. The yellow color of Zai Zai's martial soul when he released it during the match the other day was still vivid in his mind. Though he hadn't managed to grasp the spirit soul of Zai Zai's, it was clear to him that the color meant that Zai Zai had a 100-year spirit soul. A 100-year spirit soul would naturally have 100-year soul skills. Tang Wulin was unsure about the strength of that power. Are you prepared? Zai Zai's voice came to him from afar. Tang Wulin took a deep breath and focused his gaze. Let's start. Zai Zai answered back coldly. I will show you the disparity between our skills. I will make you pay for the shame you have done to me. Start. As soon as he ended his words, he was flying towards Tang Wulin's direction like a released arrow. As Zai Zai prepared for his sprint, he had positioned himself low, giving others an image of him hugging the ground. A ring of yellow light appeared beneath his feet. Like the day before, Tang Wulin noticed that as he released this 100-year spirit soul, a 35-centimeter-long blade that seemed to be made of crystal yellow appeared in his right hand. As Zai Zai sped forth, the accompanying dagger produced a faint dragon's growl. Tang Wulin also released his blue-silver grass within a short span of time. A tiny, golden glowing grass snake appeared on his arm and twirled around his wrist. Strands of vine-like blue-silver grass flew out. While Tang Wulin had little to no practical experience, the blue-silver grass thrived with its ability to cover a wide range of space. As these little blades of grass expanded, its surface area increased rapidly and enveloped Zai Zai easily. Still using the same trick, a trace of disdain flashed across Zai Zai's face. He increased his speed swiftly. Zai Zai, who was previously charging in a straight line towards him, shifted into an illusion. At once, Tang Wulin lost sight of Zai Zai and his ability to pinpoint his exact location due to the dizzying blur before him. Zai Zai moved through the gaps of Tang Wulin's weaving of variant blue-silver grass unscathed and shortened his distance with Tang Wulin. This is bad. If bind fails to trap my opponent, then this variant blue-silver grass is no longer useful in battle. Tang Wulin thought this as he retracted the grass vines and directed them before himself. The denser these vines were, the higher the defense capabilities they would have. It was an idea that came to him during his meditation the night before. At this time, Zai Zai was already within a 10-meter range from Tang Wulin. Zai Zai's speed didn't change. Instead, his arm moved even quicker. The light dragon dagger in his hand morphed into a bursting ball of light which released endless golden rays that were aimed precisely at the blue-silver grass beneath him. It was then that Tang Wulin realized the immense difference between Zai Zai and himself. Every blade of his blue-silver grass had been slashed apart by the light that came from Zai Zai's light dragon dagger. Although the blades of grass were still intact, they could easily be swung off. With the light dragon dagger's sharp blade cutting against his blue-silver grass, Tang Wulin felt the soul power within him diminished rapidly. Within a breath's time, Tang Wulin's soul power had depleted by more than 10%. If Zai Zai had found out the characteristics of Tang Wulin's soul power, he would not have needed to use such a forceful attack against Tang Wulin. This technique would have easily emptied out all of Tang Wulin's soul power. As the shield of blue-silver grass parted, Tang Wulin no longer had any defense against Zai Zai's oncoming attack. Zai Zai was already right before him by then. Since blue-silver grass was no longer useful, Tang Wulin shot both his fists forwards, exploding them at Zai Zai. At the same time, he controlled and withdrew all of his blue-silver grass. He was hoping that by doing so, he could successfully perform bind as he tried to shield off his opponent's attack. This was his only chance at winning the match. From a typical point of view, blue-silver grass belonging to a control system would ideally make it easier to defeat martial souls belonging to the agility system category. However, the difference between Tang Wulin and Zai Zai was far too great in terms of their skills or experiences. Zai Zai tilted only slightly to avoid Tang Wulin's pair of clenched fists that had produced a light explosive sound. With a sharp, flash-like turn, he was already at Tang Wulin's side. At this point in time, Tang Wulin was caught defenseless. If this was a battlefield, and Zai Zai had the intention to kill, he could have laid his blade easily on Tang Wulin's neck. However, Zai Zai took an abrupt pause. He only had the thought of defeating Tang Wulin in mind and didn't have any other intention. He changed the direction of his dagger, twitching the blade at its handle, and locked on his target, Tang Wulin's cheek. "I will pay you back for the swelling that you did to my face." While many decisions were being made within Zai Zai's mind during this split second, Tang Wulin suddenly jerked and tilted his head down, using the back of his skull to knock against Zai Zai's handle during this fraction of time. However, Zai Zai's response was quick. What made a person an agility system martial soul master? At its highest realm of mastery, the master would be able to avoid direct combat for as long as they wished. When the opponent was finally selected, they would have already been left defenseless. Though Zai Zai was proud, his analysis of Tang Wulin wasn't influenced by that pride and was accurate. He knew clearly that Tang Wulin's strength wasn't something that he could withstand. He twisted his agile wrist in a split second and sank the light dragon dagger into Tang Wulin's shoulder blade. The light dragon dagger pierced into his shoulder. Zai Zai restrained himself in this attack as he thought that Tang Wulin's whole arm would have been severed if he'd used his entire strength. Neither of them had a deep hatred for the other, so giving him a small lesson would be enough. However, what shocked him was that Tang Wulin's shoulder flesh was extremely tough. Even his light dragon dagger was only able to cut about an inch. Even if he had restrained his strength, this result was simply too shocking. Bright red blood appeared, accompanied by pain. This caused Tang Wulin to lose control of the withdrawing blue-silver grass, leaving the grass limp on the ground. As the light dragon dagger pushed down, Tang Wulin was forced to his knees. After stumbling a bit, he was able to stand back up. He wanted to punch Zai Zai, but Zai Zai suddenly spun and was already at his rear. The light dragon dagger in his shoulder twisted, causing a burst of pain to shoot throughout his body. In particular, the spot where the light dragon dagger had stabbed him had an energy which oppressed his soul power. Admit defeat? Zai Zai's voice was proud after having avenged his defeat against Tang Wulin's fist the previous day. Tang Wulin clenched his teeth. His stubborn heart couldn't possibly allow him to concede at this point. Right at that moment, the pain in his shoulder seemed to ignite through his whole body. A scorching wave of heat rushed forth, spreading rapidly throughout his being. He wanted to speak out, but found that he wasn't able to speak at all. I ask you, do you admit defeat? Zai Zai pressed down on the dagger in his hand as he fiercely said this. No, Tang Wulin snarled with a hint of rebellion. Zai Zai was stunned for a moment. He wondered why Tang Wulin's voice was so hoarse, even when the wound was so shallow. Subconsciously, even he wanted to pull out the light dragon dagger. At that moment, however, an unexpected situation occurred. The light dragon dagger that was stabbed into his shoulder issued out an ear-piercing dragon's roar that filled Zai Zai's entire being with palpitation. He felt as if he had suddenly encountered something dreadful. The blood suddenly stopped flowing from the location where the light dragon dagger was embedded, and a golden light began to spill out of the wound. Bathed in that golden light, the light dragon dagger slid a bit out of the wound. Faced with this unknown situation, Zai Zai's first thought was to retreat. However, he was aghast to discover that the light dragon dagger was practically clinging onto Tang Wulin, and he couldn't retrieve the light dragon dagger at all. Ah! Tang Wulin let out a shocking roar as a golden light poured out of his wound, dislodging the light dragon dagger. As Zai Zai watched, a golden mass of light suddenly rushed towards him, then he felt as if he was flying, as though he had been hit by a high-speed soul train. He immediately blacked out, completely unaware of what happened. Bang! Zai Zai crashed into a large tree off in the distance and slowly slid down its trunk. Tang Wulin half-knelt on the ground. His eyes were just as red as before, while his whole body violently trembled. Right at this moment, he felt as though he were metal being calcined in a furnace. The blazing heat within his body made him shake unceasingly. However, he was still completely conscious. When he had punched Zai Zai moments ago, he had restrained his strength at the very last moment, otherwise he feared that Zai Zai would have died. He lowered his head and was shocked to see his right hand covered in scales. These were golden scales shaped like rhombuses. Each scale protruded outwards a bit, giving it a sharp look. His fingernails had a sharp scale that narrowed to a point, similar to sharp talons. The little grass snake, Goldlight, who'd been twisting around his arm, had also releasing a faint golden light. Moreover, its whole body had actually lengthened by a whole circle, while its two small eyes had turned red, similar to a pair of twinkling rubies. Was it the reason? Was it not a trash spirit soul? What was the cause of all this? Tang Wulin quickly took off his shirt and was dumbstruck when he saw that the change wasn't only around his palms. Rather, the scales covered his entire right arm. Starting from where the light dragon dagger had stabbed him, the golden scales spread all the way to his palms. His arm had an indescribable feeling of power within it. Subconsciously, he suddenly punched out with his right arm. When he punched the air with his right arm, a golden ball of light rushed forth and gave an indistinct shape of a dragon's head as it traveled a meter out in front of him. The powerful aura from his all-out punch confirmed his suspicions as to the effect it would have had on a human body. Gold light, is this power because of you? Tang Wulin asked the little grass snake wrapped around his wrist, pleasantly surprised. Right at that moment, however, the inflated body of the little grass snake began to gradually shrink back to its original size, while the golden scales on his arm also began to rapidly vanish. Several breaths of time later, everything was back to normal. The only thing that remained was a feeling of exhaustion. Tang Wulin's vision faded to darkness, then he lost consciousness. He hadn't put on his clothes yet, so when the golden veins appeared on his body once again, they were visible for anyone to see. In particular, the shining lines on his vertebra were especially bright. Zai Zai woke up with a jolt. He was still dazed, but noticed a vague change in scenery. When he raised his head to look around, he saw a familiar scene. The moment he looked up, he saw the gates of East Sea Academy. The sky had already turned dark, so the lit words of East Sea Academy were exceptionally clear. Wulu wulu, Zai Zai wanted to speak out, but he discovered that all the sounds he made were completely incomprehensible. Tang Wulin's brows wrinkled and asked Zai Zai, who he carried on his back, "What did you say?" "Wu what?" Zai Zai's words were still as unclear as before. As he gradually became more clear-headed, Zai Zai discovered that he was being carried on Tang Wulin's back. He subconsciously raised his hand to touch his face, finding it swollen up like bread. His whole face was already thick with numbness. Like a surging tide, he gradually recalled the events from before. Zai Zai's mind echoed with the words he had said before he and Tang Wulin had left East Sea Academy. "We're going to East Sea Park. There aren't many people there, so you can be at ease. I'll find someone to treat your injuries." He had spent 24,000 coins just for a beating,